Hey everyone, it's Warriors NRL Fanatics here. Welcome back to the YouTube channel. And tonight joining me is a Canberra Raiders fan, and he runs the Blake and Pork Canberra Raiders podcast. You can find them on all Apple Podcast, Spotify, all those podcasting platforms. Is Blake here joining me for the very first time to preview this clash between the Canberra Raiders and the New Zealand Warriors down at GIO Stadium on Friday night at 6 p.m. Australian time there. So, yeah, it's going to be a very good game. And Blake has been kind enough to join me and give up his time to help me preview this game. How are you doing, Blake? Hope you're doing well, and it's good to have you on tonight.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm doing well. Looking forward to what should be a pretty big game in Canberra on Friday night with a very big crowd to celebrate Jared Croker's 300th game. So I think they've already sold about 18,000 tickets, I heard today. So should be a crowd in excess of 20,000, which would be great for Jared Croker, because he definitely deserves, a big crowd. And it was a little bit controversial that he was rested last week against the Tigers, but most Canberra Raiders fans and people in Canberra, think that was the right thing to do. So.
Yeah, and it's a special occasion. Jared Croker's 300th NRL game. I'm sure we'll get into that and talk about that during the preview tonight. But just popping into the chat here, it's got Daniel Bate here from the UK, the Clove staff as well from New Zealand there, and Nicholas McKershaw, and the Samoan Metalhead as well has joined us. So hello to those guys for joining, and thanks for joining in and watching the show tonight. But we'll get into the first things first. Before getting into the preview, actually, we're going to get to know the guest first, Blake, who is a massive Canberra Raiders fan. Now, Blake, first things first, how did you start off, being a Canberra Raiders fan, how did you start off the podcast in the Blake and the Pork? What year did you start off the podcast, and what made you guys do it?
So the podcast started in, I'm going to say 2017 or 2018. I can't remember now. It's been about 5 years since we started. I was doing, I've always been a Raiders fan. They joined the competition in 1982, and I started going to games in 1983. And prior to that, I was a Parramatta fan, but I wasn't I was like a Parramatta fan because everyone went for Parramatta back then because they pretty much won everything. But once Canberra got its own team, they started playing games here and you could go see all the players. I jumped on board the Raiders and never looked back. I started the podcast. I was doing a spot on ABC local Canberra radio. In my actual real job is I own a record shop, and I used to go on the ABC radio and I would talk about like music and music news and albums and stuff. But I would also every now and then talk about the Raiders, just slip it in there because I was such a passionate Raiders fan. And the Pork, actually, the guy that I do the podcast with, was on the ABC radio as well. And he's only actually stopped this year, but he's been like the sideline eye for ABC radio coverage at games at GIO Stadium. But I got to meet him through going to the radio show, and then sort of badgered him for a while to do a podcast. And at first he wasn't keen. And then it just sort of, the first year we only used to do it every few weeks, we were a bit slack, but then it sort of, got a bit of momentum and sort of gone from strength to strength. And that's, getting more listeners now in our fifth year than ever before. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and it's just awesome, because it's great that we have a lot of, rugby league fans that's starting at podcasts and doing that. And, I encourage a lot of, people who are, fans of their team to get on there and do this sort of stuff, because it's, it's great for the fans to be able to listen to stuff each week. Usually you got your Fox Sports shows, Channel 9 and that, but listening to podcasts for me is probably more, something that I like to listen to more than watching your usual Fox League shows like, our 360 and that, because, that's something that I enjoy the most, because I like watching all the YouTubers, content creators, and podcasters as well. So that's the stuff that I enjoy the most. So, yeah, how did you become a Raiders fan? So did you grow up watching the Raiders through childhood days?
Yeah,
or?
so I was, when they joined, so they joined in 1982, so I was 11 then.
Yeah.
And like I say, I was a Parramatta fan, but I wasn't like, I watched a few games on TV. There wasn't much content back then, actually. You'd only get 2 games on TV a week, and you'd have to, like, a lot of time you'd listen to games on the radio just to, like, keep up with the scores and stuff like that. But yeah, I went to my first game in actually the second year. So the first year, the Raiders only won a couple of games, because they were built a squad pretty much just from country players. And then 83, they got a few better players. I started going to games, and they started winning a few more games, and yeah, never looked back. 1984, they came equal 5th, but they missed out on the semis because it was only top 5 back then. So they came equal 5th with South Sydney, and they played a playoff to make the, like, it's crazy back then. They had a midweek playoff the week before the final, so they played on like a Wednesday. They played on the last round on like a Sunday, midweek game on a Wednesday night, and then the team that won that then played a semi again a few days later. It would never happen now. It's crazy. But yeah, they just went from strength to strength, and then obviously from when I first started being a fan, they weren't that great, but then suddenly they had a tremendously successful period, which was great fun to be part of. And some of that Raiders team of the late 80s, early 90s, is one of the best teams of all time.
Yeah, and what was your favourite memory, like, of watching a Raiders game live or even attended?
My actual favourite memory is the 89 grand final. I didn't go to I watched that at home in my house. I went to the 87 grand final. And that year was a big achievement, just making the grand final against Manly, but Manly won it pretty convincingly. But the 89 grand final is my ultimate moment. And then since then, probably the prelim at Canberra Stadium, GO Stadium against South Sydney, go into the grand final. That's another highlight. But there have been plenty of ups and downs, along a bit like the Warriors. There's been some really good times and some really It's the roller coaster. It's the bad times make you appreciate the good times. You know what I mean? So
exactly. Yeah. That's as a Warriors fan, we know how that feels as well. Being a team that's been in the comp so long and haven't won a comp, but we've made some finals. We haven't done too badly, but over the years, obviously, it's not been great. But have you been? Obviously, you probably would have been to a lot of games at GO Stadium in Canberra. What's the favourite game that stand out for you? Like when you went to a game in GO?
I reckon it has to be the 2019 prelim against South Sydney, and when Papa went over for the try to seal it. The emotion and and the noise in the stadium, that's a highlight. But there's been plenty of weird ones along the way where they kind of weren't expected to win and come good, and like I said, there's been some great wins over the years I've witnessed, but also some pretty heartbreaking defeats as well. So, but yeah, the 2019 prelim is the one that sticks most in my mind, definitely at the moment anyway.
Yeah, and GIO Stadium is very common for. I think as a travelling team, it's really tough to go down there because you've got to play in the cold conditions. They've got the crowd on their side. Canberra, especially when the Raiders do well, they tend to get good numbers at stadiums in your stadium, GIO Stadium especially. And I think that year was 2019. You guys made the grand final. I think it was the grand final that year, where you guys made that run, which a lot of people didn't expect. So. I don't know. What were your thoughts back then on that year, 2019? Obviously not the result in the grand final on the day. You'd be disappointed, but being that year,
yeah. Look, I wasn't devastated in the end, I guess, by making the grand final was such a big achievement, and you don't want to just be happy with just making a grand final. Obviously, you want to win, but for so long, like I've been, a Raiders fan for so long, and experienced a lot of good times in the early days and a lot of grand finals and 3 premierships, but then for so long it just felt like we were never going to make another grand final, so even that year making another grand final was it was a huge thing, and the excitement was incredible, a great buzz around town and everything, and it was magical. Hopefully we'll get back there again soon. After 2019, I kind of we kind of thought that we would sort of we still had a pretty good team.
Yes.
and
Yeah.
we might get there again. But we had a pretty good season in 2020, but then 2021 was pretty disastrous. We missed the 8, and then last year again started off poorly, had a good run towards the end, beat Melbourne in the first week of the finals, which is obviously, Melbourne's a team we love to beat. But then got absolutely pumped by Parramatta in the next week of the final, so that was a bit disappointing. But hopefully we'll be back there again this year.
Yeah, and what are your thoughts on Ricky Stewart as a coach of Raiders? Because a lot of people like rival or fans of other teams, when it comes to Ricky Stewart, we see he's very one of those passionate guys. He's at times, probably in his press conferences, he gets a little bit grumpy. These notice for as a fan, I do want to say that. But what are your thoughts on Ricky Stewart? Like since being at the Raiders and coaching.
I love him. And look, when we brought him back to the club, we were going absolutely nowhere. When he was brought in, his first year was 2014. Dave Furner was sacked as coach, right? That was the first coach that the Raiders had ever sacked in their history. And the Furner family, his Don Furner Sr. was the original coach of the Raiders. The current Don Furner Jr. is, the guy that runs the club. So to sack Dave Furner was a really big deal. But then to bring Ricky in, I was absolutely delighted. And there's no one better that we could have coaching the Raiders. There's no one more passionate than him. There's no one that understands Canberra more. There's no one, you could bring in another coach tomorrow, and I just don't think they'd have the passion. So Ricky's not perfect. I think he'll admit that himself. And obviously at times he probably does things in press conferences that he regrets. But, when you're at the games and you see him on the sideline and they score a try and he's jumping up, I mean, it just adds so much to the atmosphere. And I even think with the press conference, I know a lot of neutral fans like to put him down and have a go at him. But rugby league without Ricky Stewart would be a more boring sport.
Yeah.
Like the characters are really one of the big things about rugby league. Like you watch a Ricky Stewart press conference and then watching someone like Ivan Cleary in comparison, and it's very boring. They don't say much at all. So I think Ricky adds a lot to the game. And Canberra fans, we appreciate him. We know he's not perfect, but the thing I've really noticed, this year and past years is he'll get criticism from outside, but you can tell the teams are always playing for him. They're always having a crack. They could get pumped. Our two best wins this year have come off the back of pretty bad defeats. The first one being to Penrith at home. We got pumped by Penrith at home, and then we went and beat the Broncos, who are undefeated up in Brisbane. And then the other one being beating South Sydney again, one of the top sides after we'd been beaten comprehensively by Manly. So you can tell that the team plays for him, and there's a lot of spirit in them. So you look at a team like the Dragons, and obviously they were unhappy with their coach, and that really shows and comes through in the effort. So
well, I think since Ricky Stewart's been at the club, I think the club's been pretty good. The Raiders over the years. Obviously, you had some years where you've been up and down, but obviously
since he's been back, we made the prelim 3 years. And one of those, so we made the prelim in 2016, lost to the Storm. We made the prelim in 2020 as well. And we won the grand final in 2019. So, we've had a pretty good record under Ricky.
Yeah. So who at the moment is your favourite Raiders player, current player that you like to watch the most? And
so many.
In the past, what about in the past, like past players that you idolise watching as a Raiders?
So many players I've loved over the years. So it's really hard to single out too many. Gary Belcher back in the day, I absolutely loved, fullback. Clinton Tchaikovsky, again, another great fullback we had. He was a real standout in a period when the club was kind of struggling, but he always was a great player to watch. Currently, there's heaps that I love, but Jordan Rapana, again, another player that a lot of fans of other clubs seem to hate. I absolutely love because he just plays a million miles an hour, never gives up, throws his body into everything. I was really pleased that he's just announced that he's going to go around for another year next year because, he's going to be 34 next year, but he's like, he may have lost a little bit of speed, but he still just throws himself at everything. And he's had actually to fill in at fullback the last couple of weeks. He's done a great job there. Matt Timoko is another player I absolutely love. Hopefully he's going to get a Kiwi jersey sometime soon. I thought he was unlucky to not get in the World Cup squad. I think apparently, so it's kind of funny because now the New Zealand coach is his assistant coach at the Raiders, Michael Maguire. But he said the reason he didn't pick him for the World Cup was he needs to work a little bit on his defence, which, is probably the case for most young players. But his attack is unbelievable. And he's a fantastic character. You'll see him at the end of games. He'll be basically the last person off the field because he's going around signing every kid's jersey and taking selfies. He just seems like an awesome dude. And then the other player that everyone loves at the moment, and certainly applies to me, is Corey Horsburgh again, another guy that's just plays with so much passion and and fire and I guess the players I've always liked a lot of those sort of players, the ones that really give them all. And the other one I should mention, of course, is Alan Tongue. I absolutely loved Alan Tongue because, again, a guy who was a small guy, by no means the most gifted athletic player, but his heart and his will and his desire just, made him an absolute champion.
Yep. Just going through the comments here, actually, Samoan Metalhead's saying Sebastian Crisp is playing good at fullback and another Kiwi as well. So
I didn't even know he was a Kiwi until he got selected I didn't even know he was eligible till he got selected in the World Cup squad. So because I think he's half Indigenous, half Kiwi. So I think I'd always just known him as that he was Indigenous. I didn't realise he had a Kiwi background as well.
No, I didn't know that either. Samoan Metalhead, so you brought that up actually. So yeah, I think the Raiders have had a lot of good Kiwi players as well. Ruben Wiki as well, who played for the Raiders for many years and went over to play at the Warriors as well. So yeah, the Raiders had a few Kiwis play for them actually.
Yeah, John Lomax, Quentin Pongia, heaps over the years. Sean Hoppy, heaps of really good ones.
Yeah, and why don't we get on to the preview actually, and we'll go through the team list now. So I'll actually go through the Warriors. Actually, no, you go through the Raiders side first. You go through the home side as your other guest. So we'll get you to the team for the Raiders, and I'll go through the Warriors team, the away side. So
do you want me to say a bit about each of them, or just go through the names, or?
Just go through the names and just give your general thoughts on the team.
Yeah. So Seb Chris is returning at fullback. So he got injured a couple of weeks ago against South Sydney, and he's back, named to the team this week. So he's fullback. Albert Hopewade, who's been in really good form this year, is on one wing with Jordan Rapana on the other wing. In the centres, Jared Croker playing his 300th game. He's back. They rested him last week, so he could play his 300th in Canberra. Matt Timoko is the other centre. In the halves, Jack Whiten and Jamal Fogarty. Jamal Fogarty's had an incredible year this year. Without Jamal Fogarty last week, there's no way we win that game against the Tigers. Probably still a bit lucky to win it, but anyway, we win it. Josh Papali'i and Joe Tarpany. We didn't mention Joe Tarpany, who I think is one of the best in the world, and future captain of the Raiders, and maybe even a future Kiwi captain as well, because he's been captain in Maori All-Stars the last couple of years. Zach Wolford, son of Raiders legend Simon Wolford, is the hooker. In the second row, we've got Hudson Young and Elliot Whitehead, Elliot Whitehead's also back from injury. He missed a couple of weeks. And Corey Horsburgh moves back from, he's played second row while Elliot Whitehead was out, but he's back to lock, which is his best position. Then on the interchange bench, we've got Tom Starling, Emre Gula, Nick Kotrich, and Pasami Solo.
Yep. So the Warriors team now. So I'll go through it here. So you got fullback Charles Kluckstad's coming up against his former side, the Raiders. So I believe this is the first.
I'll talk about him in a bit.
Yeah, we will. So Darren Watini-Zelezniak, I thought was outstanding last week against the Dolphins there on the wing, scoring 2 tries. And the debutant, Ali Latua, coming in for Rocco Berry's out due to the concussion, 11-day stand down. So it'll be awesome to see a young player himself coming into this game. Is Webby's making a big call, actually, naming someone like Ali Latua in the side. So, yeah, we'll be interesting to see how he goes there. Adam Pompey, centre. He's pairing up with Ali Latua and Marcelo Montoya on the wing. Luke Metcalf, 5'8". Sean Johnson, halfback there. Aaron Fanua-Blake, the prop. Wade Egan, hooker. Bunty Afoa is the prop there. And second row of Jackson Ford, Murata Niokore, and Harris. Tohu Harris is the captain and lock there. Bench is Bailey Sirenen, Josh Curran, Mitchell Barnett, and Tom Ale. And the reserves, Ronald Volkman, Tane Tuapiki, Freddie Lussick, Braden Williami, and Zion Mahu. That's the side. So, well, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on the general, and what are your thoughts on the squad? Any surprises for you in the Raiders, and what are your thoughts on the Warriors team as well?
So with the Raiders team, that's pretty much. I wouldn't have said that would have been my first pick team at the start of the year, but based on how the season's gone, and we've pretty much got everyone available at the moment now, I'd say that's the best team that we can run out. Obviously, there's no Pereira. He's going to be out for an extended period, at least 4 to 6 weeks after having that seizure on the field. So with him out of the equation, I think that's it's just about the best team that we can name. At the start of the year, I would have thought Xavier Savage was going to be fullback all year. When Chance went back to New Zealand for personal reasons, for family reasons. But I think one of the reasons why the club kind of were okay with him going was that, we kind of thought we'd found our fullback moving forward in Xavier Savage. But although he's got tremendous speed, I don't think he's ever established himself at the back defensively. So at the start, he got injured, broke his jaw in the trial. So then they went with Seb Chris to play fullback. And now Xavier Savage is back playing again, but he's in New South Wales Cup. So that's a bit of a surprise, I have to say. The other surprising thing, I think, is Nick Cottridge on the bench. Do you carry an outside back on the bench or not? Yeah. It's a funny one because every time the Raiders do carry an outside back on, I'm not really a big fan of having an outside back on the bench, but every time we do have one on the bench, they seem to be needed. So, because he was on the bench for the game against Souths, and when Seb Chris went off injured pretty early in the game, he came on in the wing, and Jordan Rapana went to fullback. But Kotrick's been a bit of a disappointment, I've got to say, this year, and he's, like I said, he would have been in one of the starting wingers at the start of the year, but now Hopewadi's definitely gone past him. With the Warriors team, I mean, it's a great looking Warriors side. The two players I'm most concerned about and historically give us the most problems. Sean Johnson, definitely.
Yeah.
We always have tough games against him. He always looks good. There's been a couple of games I can think of in recent years where he's kicked a winning field goal, which was difference in the match. There was one last year. Did you get that one at Redcliffe last year?
The Raiders one in Redcliffe. No, yeah. I went to one of the games in Redcliffe, but I was I did go to that one. I think I did, from my memory, I think. Yeah.
Raiders were ahead, and then
it was
Lodge stayed down. Yeah. Lodge stayed down. Got the penalty.
I did. Yeah, I went to that game. Yeah, I definitely went to that game. Yeah.
I think you told me you were going. I have to remember. I think you told me you were going. But so that was a painful one. The other person that's given us grief, and like with Sean Johnson and Aiden Fanua-Blake, we've struggled with them not just when they're playing for the Warriors, but also when Fanua-Blake was at Manly. He famously did this when he was at Manly. Did this like wah to the crowd at full time.
Oh, yeah.
I think he'll get a lot of boos on Friday night. The Canberra fans don't like him, but it's all part of the theatre, isn't it?
Yeah.
Rugby league. Like I said, if you take the characters out of the sport, it's not as interesting. But the player that the biggest cheer on Friday night is going to be for Jared Croker for his 300th game. The nicest guy, there was a thing when they did a press conference for him and they're saying he's played 300 games at one club, one of only 18 players to have ever done that. And in that 300 games, he's never been suspended once. He's like the nicest guy, ultimate clean skin.
Yeah.
But other guy who I think will get the second biggest cheer on Friday night is Chance Nickel-Cook stud, because Raiders fans Absolutely love that guy for the same reason. Just a champion. I've watched a heap of Warriors games this year, and one of the main reasons I've actually watched them is to see how Chance is going, and I think he's been absolutely fantastic for you guys. And yeah, he's a beloved figure in Canberra. I mean, everyone knows, he's split up with his partner. His partner took the kids back to New Zealand, so he couldn't stay in another country from his kids. I can imagine what that'd be like. So he wanted to move back to the Warriors, and he's gone there. He's done a great job. It'll be interesting next year, though. I guess he'll go to the centres, will he?
Yeah, I think so. There's been a lot of talk around. I think apparently I saw a comment here somewhere in the live chat that Webster's actually confirmed that CNK will be the fullback next year, and maybe Roger goes into the centres. So
I don't know, because I thought it'd be the other way around. I thought that because CNK's done a good job for New Zealand in the past in the centres, and in fact, when Savage was coming through last year, a lot of Raiders fans wanted CNK to go to the centres for the Raiders and for Savage to be at the back. But one of the things that happened with Savage actually last year was when he first came to the club and he was part of that amazing, run in 2019. That was his first year at the Raiders. He was really solid. But then last year before he left, he actually sort of got a bit of a case of the yips under the high balls and was really dropping a lot of high balls. But he's, from what I've seen this year, he's had no problems at all. He's looked rock solid. And, there are some fullbacks that might score 2 or 3 tries a game, but then they might let in 2 or 3 tries. Well, he stops 2 or 3 tries every single game, doesn't he? Some of the tackles and efforts and just positioning, and he's awesome. And again, like I said, just personality-wise, one of the nicest guys, to play the game. So everyone loves him.
Yeah, I was going to ask you on that on CNK, and obviously a lot of Raiders fans from what I've seen on Twitter, which is plenty of you guys on Twitter as well. So I've seen a lot of them big fans of CNK, and I think his shout out to T-Mac, he's a massive Raiders fan there on Twitter. He absolutely loves CNK, and he was gutted when he left. So yeah, I think he's got massive. A lot of fans love him, CNK, and
I don't know if you still say he actually finished up in New South Wales Cup last year for the Raiders, and at his last game, he was playing New South Wales Cup. He was actually crying, not even just actually when he was on the field in the game, as well as at the end. You could see he was really emotional about leaving, and they had a good presentation for him, at the end. And yeah, he's someone that will always be welcome back in Canberra and the Raiders.
Yeah, and just on before getting back into this game, what are your thoughts so far on the seasons for the Canberra Raiders this year? Did you have a lot of expectations going into this year, and what are your feelings right now of the Raiders, how they're going? Obviously, had a bit of a slower start, but they sort of started to come into it. What are your thoughts this year so far?
I was hopeful without being, I was hopeful that we were going to finish somewhere between sort of 5 to 8, bottom half of the 8. We made the 8 last year, largely on the back of the Broncos falling to pieces at the end of the season. But we made the 8 last year, and then we had a good performance in week 1 of the finals against the Storm. And I kind of thought, well, look, Savage will be better for another preseason, a bit more size. And Jamal Fogarty, what happened last year was in the first trial, he got injured and missed half the season. And the first half of our season was pretty bad. But then when he came into the team, we started putting some wins together and had a good finish. So I was kind of hopeful that with him starting this year, we'd be more established. And yeah, generally I'm pretty happy with how we went. The first couple of weeks, actually, we just lost to the Cowboys and we just lost to the Dolphins.
Yeah.
And then we beat the Sharks. Yeah, then we beat the Sharks at home, and then the one after, I think we got pumped somewhere, and then there was the Penrith one. So, Jen, I'm pretty happy. There's still plenty to work on. There's still plenty of improvement in the side. We've leaked a lot of points. We're equal second with minus
49 for and against. So there's plenty of room for improvement. We keep on, the most we've won a game by this year is 8 points. And so we only won by 1 last week. So yeah, the for and against is not going down. But yeah, no, I'm generally pretty happy. And I think there's more good signs than bad signs. When Jack White announced that he was, going to move on, obviously that was a big blow at the time and pretty disappointing.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think I'm seeing enough signs that the club's in good shape. And in fact, since he announced he was moving on, it feels as though the focus of the side has shifted. And it's not, before it was Jack's side. And look, Jack is a brilliant player and he'll do something absolutely brilliant. But then at the same time, he'll like hit the ball out in the full or throw an intercept, or like he's a real rocks and diamonds player. Since he announced he's leaving, I think that the focus has changed and it's now Jamal Fogarty's team. Before he came into Jack White's team and he wasn't that established, whereas now he's stepped up and he's really controlling the side and he's doing a lot more kicking, he's getting a lot more ball, and we're just playing a more planned, organised game. So yeah, I think the sign's good, and we got plenty of good young players coming through. Like Hudson Young, made his debut for State of Origin. Corey Horsburgh's not far away. Like I said, Matt Timoko's going great guns. There's plenty of good signs. So I think we're in reasonably good shape.
Yep, yeah, and obviously Jack White and the news that he is going to be leaving you guys at the end of the season. So yeah, what are your feelings on that? Obviously, Jack's been at the Raiders.
Yeah, disappointed. Obviously, he's been at the club since he was 15 or 16. He debuted when he was 18. He's been a fixture in the first grade team for like more than 10 years. And he's, our star player. And the fact that we offered him like over $1 million a season and that still wasn't enough to keep him, is disappointing. But I think we moved on pretty quickly. And look, obviously going to South Sydney has, some appeal for him because he's, cousins with Latrell and, he said he just wanted to experience something different, before the end of his career. So I don't I don't hold a great deal against him, but yeah, it was disappointing. But that said, hopefully something good. We'll see if we can sign someone else or bring someone else in, because I don't really know that he's $1 million plus player. I think he's a brilliant player. But I think of $1 million plus player as a Adam Reynolds and Nathan Cleary, as someone that can sort of a monster, someone that can really own a result, own a team. And he's while he's always had flashes of brilliance, he's never been that complete player for mine. And now he's 30, whatever, he's never going to be. So I think he's probably actually looking forward to going to Souths and just playing the centres, where just basically he can just focus on running and smashing people. Like his defence is unbelievable. But he's probably he's looking forward to not having the pressure of running the side and doing the kicking and everything. So I'm sure he'll do well at Souths, but yeah, I'm sad to see him go.
Yep. So just going through a comment here, Daniel Bates saying Canberra a very important cog in the NRL wheel. I feel good to see them doing well, really.
Thank you, Daniel.
Yeah, so just reading through these comments here. So yep. Okay, so yeah, look, Jared Croker is playing his 300th NRL game. It's a massive milestone. There's Simon Mannering for the Warriors has achieved that milestone too. I think even then it was against the Raiders, funny enough, and Simon Mannering's 300th and Jared Croker's 300th is now against the Warriors as well, but which is in Canberra. So funny that, but yeah, Jared Croker, he's been around for some time. He's one of the, I think he's been one of the greats as well in the game. He's achieved a lot. Very underrated in my opinion. But favorite memory? What was your favorite memory of Jared Croker being his 300th game?
That's a very good question. It was probably, I reckon, in the 2016 season. I just had that was his real absolute breakout year, and that was a year that we had went on a huge run and almost went all the way. And I think, that was just a breakout season for him. And that was my sort of my favourite sort of memory of Jared Croker. But yeah, just everything about the guy. I mean, he's slotted so many crucial goals for the Raiders over the years, and it's the 300 for him is a massive achievement, because if you asked me at the start of the season, is he going to make it? Is he going to be able to play 300? I thought there was no chance, because I thought his body's not going to hold up, because he's just like he's had so many injuries in the last couple of years, and each time he'd come back from injury, he'd re-injure himself or do something else. So I didn't think he'd make it on an injury front. And the other reason why I thought that he probably wouldn't make it is because he wasn't really keeping up with the speed of the game, and so I didn't have him in our best team anyway. So for him to have persevered, gotten back, he played the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season in New South Wales Cup. He didn't spit the dummy. He didn't have a silk. He just turned up and sort of said, "Oh well, if all I'm doing is helping the young guys come through, I'm happy to do that role." But we got pumped by the Panthers and the senior players, and guys like Jordan Rapiner and Jack White and Josh Pupley actually went to Ricky Stewart and said, "You got to pick him, put him back in the team." And undoubtedly, as well as his goal kicking, which has been massive for us, and his I think his presence on the field just lifts the rest of the team, and they really want to do it for him and win for him. That first game he came back, I guess this is really a very recent but good memory, is when he came back and we were going up to play the Broncos, who were undefeated at that stage. Everyone said the Broncos were going to thrash the Raiders, and he was marking Katoni Staggs, and people were like, the Broncos are going to smash the Raiders and Katoni Staggs is going to score 3 tries. Yep. Well, Katoni Staggs didn't score 1 try, and Croker stopped him all night, and so that was tremendous. So no, it's absolutely great to see. Wish nothing but the best of the guy. I mean, like I said, I have said that he wasn't in our best team at the start of the year, and at times have been saying that it looked like the game had passed him by, because if you look at outside backs these days, they're kind of either big or they're fast, and the best ones are probably both big and fast. And he's not that big, and these days he's not that fast. But the fact that he's managed to use his smarts and get back in the team and perform well, is a real credit to him. So it's good to see, and hopefully there's a huge crowd. Like I said, 18,000 tickets already sold. I think that sellout's 25,000. So if we don't get there, hopefully we'll go close.
Yeah, I'm sure they will get a pretty good crowd there. And I like I said with you earlier before you went live, I think that Canberra is a tough place to go and play. Opposition teams really hate going down there. Bearing the cold conditions.
The Warriors should be used to the cold.
Yeah,
it's not as windy as Auckland.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, our record in the past couple of years hasn't been great in Canberra, but I think the last couple of times we've played there, we've actually done quite well. So
yeah, I can recall a lot of tough matches over the years against the Warriors, and there's been some seasons when we've been going well and the Warriors haven't been going well, and they've still ended up being very tough matches. I had a look at the form, and of the last 10 games between the Warriors and the Raiders, it's 5 apiece. So and most of them have been pretty close. So I'm by no means am I expecting a comfortable win for the Raiders this week again. I think it's going to be very close. Hopefully we get the chocolates, but I think it's going to be very close.
Yeah, so I just want to cover on this one actually. Being a Warriors fan myself, Ali Lautua is making his NRL debut. Bit of a surprise. I know a lot of people may not have expected him to be named this afternoon, and team was Tuesday. So just a bit of info on him actually. He's the nephew of former Warrior 55 Ali Lautiti. And he's 20 years old. He's also played a bit of. I think he's come through the Warriors system. He was with the club for quite some time. I think it was around 14 years old. He's been with the Warriors since then. Has played for the SG Ball Cup team in 2020. Obviously, that 2020 season was pretty cut short
Mm.
because of COVID. So we didn't have a team that great after that. So we were cut short. But this year he's been very impressive, actually. And New South Wales Cup, he's had 13 appearances and 9 tries for 136 metres average, 9 line breaks, 6 try assists, and 51 tackle breaks. So although it's a different competition to the NRL, it's pretty good showing by someone like Ali Latua as well. So, yeah, I don't know.
In New South Wales Cup, is he playing centre or is he playing fullback?
Yeah, he's playing centre. So
Oh, is
he's
he?
been
Okay,
playing
yeah.
a bit of centre there. So yeah.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
that's just a bit of information for those of you who don't know who he is. He's I think he's quite a talented player. He's really got a lot of potential as well. So I'd say keep an eye out for him this weekend, this Friday night actually. Obviously his first game up against the Raiders in Canberra. It's no easy task, isn't it? Because he's coming up against Croker as well. So interesting enough there. So coming up against one of the most experienced players up against an inexperienced player. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes.
No, I look forward to seeing. It's funny when you said that he was Ali Latifi's nephew, because it's like, that name reminds me of someone, and that's who it reminds me of.
Yeah.
Yeah, the New South Wales Cup is not before, because I don't think they have it on a Friday night 6 o'clock game. So the New South Wales Cup is on Saturday in Canberra. At this, like, sometimes they play New South Wales Cup games in Canberra at this Raiders club, which is like a little suburban ground. But I'd go along whenever I can to see the New South Wales Cup players, and it's there's clubs right there, and you can actually sort of stand on the balcony and watch the games.
Oh, nice.
It's really good atmosphere.
Yeah,
it reminds me a lot. It reminds me a lot of actually going when I was a kid, and the Canberra Raiders used to play at Seaford Oval, which was the original home. And it's a ground. It's actually in Queanbeyan, which is a small town outside of Canberra, New South Wales. And people used to be able to drive their cars in and watch the game from their cars. It was another era, that's for sure. A bit like the Redcliffe ground, though. Really, if you've been there, that's kind of those little sort of old school grounds. That vibe.
Yeah, and I don't know. Do you watch a lot of your New South Wales Cup side?
Whenever I can, yeah. So I've watched 3 games live or 2 games live at this ground so far this year. But yeah, I always go out to at least. They don't play all of them there, but when they do, and I can get away, I always head out and watch them, because it's always good to see who the prospects are and who's coming through. And also, like the first couple of games I went and the start of this year, Croker was playing New South Wales Cup. Out there. So it was interesting to see someone who had gone. And, he actually, until this year, had never played reserve grade or New South Wales Cup before. He went straight from the under-20s competition to first grade, and he'd only ever played first grade. He was in the inaugural year of the Toyota Cup. Canberra defeated the Broncos in the grand final, and there was a star-studded Canberra team. It had like Josh Dugan, Joel Thompson, and the heaps of players that had big raps on them. But actually, Croker was the first one to make it to first grade of all of them.
Yeah, that's very interesting, because obviously our New South Wales Cup team, have been out of competition for quite some time, because with COVID and that we didn't have a cup side. We had to rely on the Dolphins back in the Q Cup. So as kind of them was it to do that, but it was just really great for us to now just have our own side.
It's affected the development of a lot of those younger players, those guys who sort of like 21, 22, like the Savages and the Hopowatis and these guys, because there was a while where they didn't get to play a lot of football, and they were only just doing training sessions. I think the Warriors have probably been the worst affected of all by the lack of those games, because there was a while, the under-20s team in Canberra, I think it was 2020, or was it 2021? They were just playing in the local Canberra team, against like guys that just had jobs and stuff like that, and they smashed in the whole competition. But
you
realise how much those sort of guys are.
Yeah. Anyway, so back down into the whole thing of the game. So looking into the key matchups now. So what key matchups are you looking at on the field? Something to keep an eye out for, like a key matchup for you that stands out.
So pretty much all our good performances are built on the back of our forwards. And our forwards getting a domination and field position. So, and the guys that have really stood up this year, Josh Papali'i, Joe Tarpany, and Corey Horsburgh. Obviously, they're going to have a tough job. And a lot of games, the lead up, you can say, well, we should be able to get over this pack pretty easily. But, Adam Fanua-Blake is as good as Josh Papali'i and Joe Tarpany. And Tohu Harris is an absolute star. And then you got Bundy Afoa's got plenty of size and energy. So I think, the battle of the forwards is going to be the key thing in this game. That's where I see the most interesting matchups and the sort of thing I'll be looking forward to the most. Mitch Barnett hasn't played much this year, has he? In the end,
no, so
big signing.
Yeah, no, Mitchell Barnett. So basically, it was his first game back last week against the Dolphins. He came off the bench. So basically, he's had a neck injury and he's been ruled out since I think it was round 2. I think since round 2. He's been out since then. Look, there's a bit of talk around whether he was going to play again this year, but there's a bit of doubt lingering around that. But it was just
I
great
like him.
to see him.
I like him. He's a maniac. He's a maniac. So I'm not surprised he injures himself. But I've always he was at the Raiders. He played one first grade game, and then they punted him.
Yep.
Yeah, so he came through. I think he played 20s and stuff with it. He's not from Canberra.
Oh, well.
But he came through the Raiders system, and then he went to the Knights. Josh Curran's another player I really like.
Yeah.
He seems like he hasn't been. I would have thought that he would be a starting player for the Warriors, all the time. But he hasn't played that much as well, has he?
No. So basically, he's had some injuries and stuff, and he's been coming off the bench lately. So he's obviously you've got Jackson Ford there. He's been playing pretty well for us this year as well in the forwards and that. So basically,
where did he come from, Jackson Ford?
Jackson Ford came from the Dragons.
Oh, did he? All right. Right. And how's Luke Metcalf? Is this his first year or second year? He came from the Sharks, didn't he?
Yeah, he came over from the Sharks mid-season. So obviously, he basically at the start of the year, I think he had an injury which kept him out for quite some time. We saw him in the trials against the Tigers, and then from there on, he's obviously he went over to America, I believe, as well to try and get some stuff around the injury and that, just like Ponga did. Yeah. So he went over to America as well and came back. So I think obviously his debut game for the Warriors against the Broncos down in Napier a couple of weeks ago, and it was a bit of a tough one for him, but I thought he was pretty solid last week. So Metcalf, he's very good. He's a very talented kid and very young as well, and I think he's got a lot of potential as well. So
I know that sort of. So the big sort of talk about Raiders, fans is who we can get to play 6 for the Raiders next year, and Metcalf is a name that a few of my friends have. I don't know how much longer he's contracted to the Warriors for, but I've actually heard people, toss his name up. So he's obviously going all right. The other player that's impressed me this year is Wade Egan. I thought he's having a really good season. In the past, I thought he was, a bit of a an honest toiler, like one of those just no nonsense hookers that does a job but never really that exciting. But he's shown like he's got a lot more to his game this year. He's been really good from what I've seen.
Yeah, he has unfortunately suffered quite a few concussions this year, which is a bit of a pain because if he's on the field, he's been very good for us. But then he's been suffering some concussions as well, which is never good, obviously. But
no,
you
don't want to see it there.
No, even whatever fan last I think it was last week or was it the previous week? You guys played Souths.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, and something happened to was it Corey Harawira Naira, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
so they're still trying to work it out, but he actually suffered an epileptic fit. So that was the first time he's ever had an epileptic fit. So they're not sure. You know, he's still undergoing all these tests and scans. So that's what they've said. He's out for 4 to 6 weeks while they're trying to assess, you know, what's going on. Because it wasn't like I've never seen anything like it on the field.
No.
You've seen players before. There was one with Victor Radley. I can't remember if it was last year, the year before he got knocked out, and you could see he was actually like convulsing. But this was actually different from that, and it wasn't like he the direct result as a head knock sort of immediately. They reckon he might have had a couple of little knocks in the build up, but he was just sort of got up, played the ball, walked off, and then just collapsed. So yeah, it was a pretty scary one. But he's a great player. So hopefully, you know, he's all good. But you know, you just got to do the tests and find out, you know, because maybe if he, you know, has got epilepsy, maybe rugby league's not, you know, in his future. So it's, you know, it's a brutal sport. It's a brutal sport, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, I didn't see the game, but I heard what happened, and it was a bit of a shock. You know, it was a bit of a shock, and obviously you saw South's, you know, South's players getting around him and see if he's okay, which is you know, something you like to see in the game of rugby league. You know, just forget about the game itself, and you know.
Yeah. Well, the actual game stopped for about 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And then you just, you know, everyone was like sort of didn't really know what was going on, but then he sort of came to, and then he went to hospital and then got released from hospital, you know, the next morning, and posted a video saying that, you know, he's thanked everyone for their concern and care, but you haven't really, to be honest, haven't heard that much about where he's at since then. So hopefully, you know, they're working out, you know, what the deal is, and he'll be good and he'll be able to play again soon, because that was actually his first game back for a while, and he was having a great game, because that was Hudson Young was away on New South Wales Origin, so he got his spot back in the side.
Yep. Yeah. So anyway, so look, my key matchups probably look, you know, like you said, they're forwards. I think the battle will be won in the forwards, especially. I think you got Whenua Blake, Papali'i. You've also got, you know, Tapane and Foa, Hudson Young, Jackson Ford, all those forwards, I think. And Marata Niokoro, I thought, was very impressive last week as well for the Warriors. I think that was one of his best games he's played since coming to the club. So, yeah, I think he's been very good. And Harris as well, he's always a workhorse as well. So, you know, that's pretty much my key battles and matches to look out for as well. And I think, you know, the fullback battle is interesting as well. Sebastian Kris up against Chance Nickel-Klukstad, actually. What are your thoughts on that, actually? What are you thinking there? Because obviously CNK, he's got the, you know, experience.
Yeah. Look, to be honest with you, I would love to have CNK back at the club this year. I think Seb Kris, though, is doing a pretty good job at fullback, and you know, it's a big change from playing centre. But every week he's played, he's looked better and better, and you know, he's still probably got to work a bit on his positioning, you know, in defence and organising the line. But his kick returns are great, and he's been really safe under the high ball. So, you know, he's doing a good job. But if I could have Chance back in the team tomorrow, I'd have him in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
The other
so
one
just
interesting is I don't know. So if Dallin Watney-Zelezniak, does he play on the left hand side for the Warriors? I think if he's coming up against Rapana. If he's coming up against Rapana, there could be some fireworks there as well, because those are two guys that will go after it. And also, too, I think that a lot of the Kiwi players, when they come up against the Warriors, I mean, Ruben Wiki was an incredible example. He used to play like a man possessed when the Raiders played the Warriors. But I think a lot of the players like Rapana and Timoko and Joseph Tarpany, you know, will be out for a really big game against their Kiwi teammates.
Yeah, and I remember that game was that game where the Warriors made that comeback. Obviously as a Raiders fan, would have been disappointed with that. And
2021, 2021 one when Rapana went over, but he held the ball in his right arm.
I thought it was over. Yeah.
Yeah, and then Roger Tuivasa-Sheck knocked it out. that was a tough game because what actually happened in that game was Seb Chris was in the centres and Brian James was playing for us then, and they both got knocked out in like the first. They had a head clash, and they both got knocked out in the first couple of minutes, and so both got ruled out for the rest of the game. So that was before the 18th. It was actually probably one of the reasons why they brought in the 18th man. But so there was no 18th man back then. So if you had two players knocked out, well, that was it. So we only had two players left on the bench. And we got off to a good start. And I think we were ahead by a decent amount at half time. But then we just ran out of gas because, we only had two forwards on the bench. And the Warriors came home. And there was a try as well. I remember that was awarded to the Warriors that was clearly off a blatant forward pass. And Henry Paranara was the ref. And I think that was the last game that he ever refed on the field. And then after that, they made him only a video ref because, he didn't have a great game. So that's a bit of a heartbreaking one as a Raiders fan. But, I was at that one. That was at GIA 2021, I'm sure of it.
Yep. Yeah, so the betting prices on this game via Sportsbet, I've got the Raiders here at $1.50. Favourites to the Warriors $2.60. What's your thoughts on those prices there?
I think I'd have it a lot closer. I'd have it a lot closer than that. And if you were to go back and look over the odds of Raiders games this year so far, I think that most of the games that we've won, we've probably actually started as the outsiders. And there's some games that when we've been, probably the only one I can think of that we were heavy favourites in was against the Dragons, and even still we only just won that one. But you look at like we were the favourites against Manly and we got absolutely pumped. Whereas we were underdogs against Souths, underdogs against Broncos, and we managed to win those games. So I wouldn't have it that far apart. And if I was a betting person, which I'm not, I wouldn't be putting too much of my hard earned on the Raiders at $1.50 because like I say, whenever we win it. I think that the Jared Croker factor and the crowd should be enough to get us over the line, but I think it's going to be very close.
Yeah. So just I want to look into the stats here, actually. So I've got a bit of the stats for both sides of the season. So I'll just get it. Oh, here they are. So got them on my computer there. So so basically head-to-head stats is 1998. So the Warriors and Raiders have played 44 times against each other. The Raiders have won 23. The Warriors have won 21. And so the previous meetings, the Raiders won 26-14 on July the 23rd, 2022. And the Warriors won 21-20. I think that was pretty sure that was it the Redcliffe game? I'm not sure.
That's the Redcliffe one.
Yeah, that was the Redcliffe one. Yeah, so
John Johnson
2022.
Lodge stayed down and got the penalty, and that was the kick that made it 20-all.
Yeah,
and then Roger got the winning field goal, I think.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so 2022. So there's been some close. A lot of these games between both the Warriors and the Raiders have been very close counters.
Yeah.
So there's not
like
been
I say,
too many.
even when there's a couple of years there, like in 2019 and 2016, I think, where the Raiders have been going well and the Warriors maybe not so well. They've still been all close games.
Yeah, so
I've got a random stat for you, though.
Yep, go ahead.
The team that Jared Croker, he's scored some huge amount of points. I think he's now the third highest point scorer of all time. There was for a while there he looked like he could catch Cameron Smith, but I don't think he's going now. But I think he has scored. Where's his points? He's got 2,316 points.
Yep.
And he's got 135 tries and 888 goals at a goal kicking percentage of 80% across his whole career. Pretty nice. But he scored more points against the Warriors than any other club.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah, and that's an interesting stat. But obviously, looking at the form guide, so got the form guide here. So the Warriors won two from five. The Raiders won 4 from 5. So doing a little bit better there. Points scored: Raiders 280, Warriors 256, and points conceded: Raiders 329. Like you said to me earlier that the points conceded by your boys is still a bit of a concern there. Warriors 244. So defensively, we're doing a lot better.
I think we got the second worst defense,
Yep.
or the second most points conceded, and the only team that's conceded more points than us is the Cowboys. And the Cowboys have actually played one more game because the Cowboys haven't.
Yeah.
You know how the draw's all messed up, so the Cowboys haven't had a bye yet, and some teams have already had 2 byes. So yeah, our defense has been. We've got flogged a couple of times, which has really screwed up for and against. But generally, yeah, we're conceding a lot of points. Across the board.
Yeah, the points conceded, which is interesting because Warriors generally concede a lot of points, but this year defensively we've been pretty good. I think we haven't been absolutely towed up in our games. Even when we've lost our games, we've been well in those games as well. So that's the pleasing thing as a fan at the moment. So Raiders 78% completion rate there. Tackle efficiency, the Warriors 88.5% to 87.7% to the Raiders. Average points scored, Raiders 21, Warriors 19. And average points conceded, Raiders 25, Warriors 18. The record at GO Stadium in Canberra is obviously very impressive for the Raiders at 59%. The Warriors in Canberra have only won 5 from 18 at 28% there. So what are your thoughts on that, actually? Because we know that GO Stadium in Canberra is a tough venue, but
It used to be a bit of a fortress, and then for a while, it actually stopped. It stopped being such a fortress. I would say a lot of that record against the Warriors there was probably a period in the 90s when they probably didn't win a game for a long time, and then from the 2000s onwards, I would say it's probably been that's when more of the Warriors wins have come, because I can recall a few defeats to the Warriors in recent times. But we've also had a couple of narrow escapes. There was one a few years ago, I remember, where the Warriors sent it to extra time.
Yeah.
And I think that there were a couple of kicks from the sideline to even maybe get it to go to extra time. Yeah. So, yeah, it's been close in recent years. And like I said, I'm not expecting a comfortable win to the Raiders by any means. My score prediction is going to be 28-24 to the Raiders.
28-24. Yeah, and just to comment here, Jacko saying, I remember Cappy coaching us, which is Andrew McFadden, who used to be part of you guys' coaching staff there, actually. Andrew McFadden.
Yeah, so he was a player.
Yeah.
And then he went to Parramatta, and then he went to the Storm. And then I think Matt Elliott, used to coach him at the Raiders years ago. So when Matt Elliott took him over, when Matt Elliott, so he was an assistant at the Raiders, and then when Matt Elliott went to the Warriors, he took Andrew McFadden with him.
Yep.
And then he became head coach of the Warriors when Matt Elliott got sacked. And then he was then he got sacked himself, but he was still assistant coach. And then Ricky brought him back to Canberra to coach the Raiders, and he only just left. He left at the end of last year to take up another role, I think, in development.
Yeah, he is. Yeah,
but he was the reason that Chance came to the Raiders, because we needed a fullback, and because Jack was getting moved from fullback to 6, and we needed a fullback, and Andrew McFadden said, we should bring Chance over, and he sort of came over on a small deal and a chance to play football because he was stuck behind Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, and he absolutely made the most of the opportunity and had an incredible season, which culminated in a grand final appearance.
Yep. So just give my prediction now. So I've gone. I'm going to back my team, my boys in here, the Warriors,
Of
to
course,
win.
you have to.
Yeah, got to back my team in, obviously, because not a fan, don't back it back against your team. So back with my heart instead of my head. But my head's obviously saying probably Canberra at home will be too tough of a test, a tough ask for us. But I still think this team's got plenty of potential, and I think we can only get better. We showed it against the Dolphins last week. I know the Dolphins had some players out didn't play due to Origin, but you can only play what's in front of you, and we still had some players out as well. So, it was still a good win. Still 2 points on the board at the end of the day. So, look, I think in Canberra, obviously, I'm going to go with my team. I'm going to back the boys in here. I'll go with Warriors 24-18. Yeah, that's my prediction. Try scorer, anytime try scorer, I'm probably going to say Dallin. Dallin with Kenny Zalesniak on the wing there. And I might go C&K. Yeah, chance to do a quick start against this former side on the Raiders. What about you in terms of try scorers? Who do you reckon?
Jordan Rapana.
Yep.
Matt Timoko. And I'm going to go Hudson Young. Because he's got an incredible... I think last year, he was the second top try scorer for the... I think he got 15 tries or something in the end, which was like the most by Raiders forward in... like a long since David Ferner or something like that, since the glory days. And he was second top try scorer behind Seb Chris last year. But he's one of those players that he can come up with something from nothing. So I think, I'd like to back him for a try. Jared Croker would be great if he scored, but we'll wait and see. But it's good that you do always back your team, because we've got some friends that have another Canberra Raiders podcast called the Green Machine Podcast. And they're always tipping the Raiders, so I always bag them for.
Yeah, I've heard of them before. The Green Machine.
No, they're good.
Podcast.
They've been around a long time. Yeah, they're good dudes.
Yeah. It's, I like to listen to a lot of podcasts, even if it's not my team's. I like to listen to Westlife podcast and all those podcasts like you guys as well, and the Green Machine podcast.
There's some good Sharks ones too. They're pretty entertaining.
Yeah, there's some good Sharks podcasts as well. So there's plenty of good ones out there at the moment. But Blake, thanks for coming on. I really do appreciate you for coming on and giving your time up and chatting about the game this week. So go check them out, Blake and the Pork Podcast. They are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. I think they're on Twitter as well. Yeah, Twitter as well. So go and check them out on all those platforms there. But thanks to all the viewers for tuning in and watching. It's been a bit of a joy to have Blake on, a massive Raiders fan, and it's been a lot of fun. Thanks to all the viewers for your comments as well. And I really do appreciate you guys watching. Make sure you subscribe to this channel as well. Make sure you subscribe if you're a new viewer. Like the stream, like the video if you haven't done so already. Do all the following, share. It really does help out the channel as well, and it grows, the content. But thanks everyone for tuning in. Have a good night, and go the Warriors. And can't wait for Friday night. Cheers, everyone.
See ya.
See ya.